January 1945. The volcanic sand of Iwo Jima is still cool before dawn, but beneath it the island breathes. Sulfur hangs in the air, a bitter smell that stings the eyes. From invisible mouths in the ground, warm vapor rises and fades. The surf beats a slow, relentless rhythm against the black shore. Somewhere below the surface, in concrete-lined tunnels carved into rock, Japanese soldiers wait in darkness, hands resting on rifles, ears tuned to every footstep above. They expect bombardment. They expect bullets. What they do not expect is fire that hunts. This moment matters because by the final year of the Pacific War, the conflict had transformed into a brutal contest of endurance and ideology. Japan's island defenses were no longer designed to repel landings at the water's edge. After the losses of earlier campaigns, doctrine shifted inward, underground, into bunkers, caves, and tunnel networks meant to absorb punishment and bleed the attacker dry. On islands like Saipan, Peleliu, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa, defense was depth, concealment, and patience. American forces, facing terrain that swallowed artillery shells and re-emerged to fire again, needed a way to neutralize an enemy that could not be seen and could not be dislodged by steel alone. The answer, developed and refined under pressure, was controlled fire. Japanese soldiers entered this phase of the war with firm expectations shaped by training and belief. They had been taught that American soldiers were soft, dependent on machines, uncomfortable with hardship. They expected frontal assaults, wasteful barrages, and eventual exhaustion. Inside the bunkers, surrounded by rock and reinforced concrete, they believed themselves protected from the worst. Flamethrowers, when imagined at all, were seen as crude tools, short-ranged and easily countered. The reality that emerged on these islands shattered that assumption. American flamethrowers, particularly the M2 series, were not improvised novelties. By 1944, they were standardized weapons integrated into infantry tactics. They projected thickened fuel that clung to surfaces and burned at temperatures capable of consuming oxygen in enclosed spaces. Their effective range was limited compared to rifles, but in bunker warfare, range mattered less than certainty. Fire did not need precision. It flowed, curved, seeped into firing ports and ventilation shafts. It followed the architecture of the defense itself. Historical records from the U.S. Marine Corps detail how flamethrowers were used systematically. On Iwo Jima, after days of naval and aerial bombardment failed to silence the underground defenses, assault teams advanced with engineers and flamethrower operators. A typical method involved sealing exits with explosives and then introducing fire to deny reoccupation. On Okinawa, where cave systems stretched for miles, flamethrowers became essential tools in reducing positions that would otherwise require heavy casualties to clear. After-action reports note a marked reduction in American losses when fire was used to neutralize fortified caves. For Japanese soldiers inside these positions, the experience was unlike anything they had known. Bombardment was violent but distant, a concussion felt through stone. Bullets were sharp, directional, survivable with discipline. Fire was intimate. The sound came first, a low mechanical hiss, followed by a rushing roar that filled confined spaces. Heat displaced air, turning shelter into suffocation. Darkness flickered orange, then vanished under smoke. Survival instincts collided with indoctrination as the bunker, once a symbol of protection, became a trap. Japanese wartime diaries and post-war testimonies preserved in historical archives describe the terror of flamethrower attacks without embellishment. Soldiers wrote of heat that could not be escaped, of smoke that forced movement even when orders demanded stillness. Some accounts noted that the weapon seemed to negate courage itself, not through fear alone, but through inevitability. There was no marksmanship to answer it, no charge to repel. Fire did not retreat when fired upon, it advanced. The recurring symbol of this campaign was the flame itself, not as chaos, but as control. American doctrine emphasized coordination, infantry, engineers, armor, and air support working in sequence. Flamethrowers were used sparingly, deliberately, almost clinically. To American units, the weapon represented efficiency, a means to shorten battles and save lives by ending resistance decisively. To Japanese defenders, the same flame represented a new kind of warfare, one that valued outcome over ritual, pragmatism over endurance. This contrast forced a transformation in perception. Japanese soldiers who survived bunker assaults carried with them a revised understanding of their enemy. The Americans were not merely numerous, they were adaptable. They brought industrial solutions to human problems, turning fuel, machinery, and logistics into tactical dominance. Fire, fed by supply lines that stretched across the Pacific, became a manifestation of abundance. Where Japanese defenses relied on fixed positions and limited resources, American forces applied mobile, repeatable force. The ideological impact extended beyond the battlefield. The flamethrower challenged the notion that sacrifice alone could balance material disparity. It revealed a war fought not just with bravery, but with systems. For some Japanese soldiers, this realization undermined the certainty that had sustained them. The bunker, once a testament to resolve, became evidence of isolation. The flame exposed the limits of a strategy built on attrition when facing an enemy capable of overwhelming it with technology and supply. By the war's end, images of charred bunker entrances and scorched cave mouths became part of the visual record of the Pacific campaign. They were grim, unsettling, and controversial. Yet historians note that these weapons, terrible as they were, often shortened engagements that might otherwise have consumed weeks and thousands of lives. The fire that stunned Japanese soldiers was not unleashed indiscriminately. It was employed as a calculated response to a form of warfare that left few alternatives. In the epilogue of this story, the flame fades, but its meaning lingers. It stands as a symbol of a broader truth about the conflict. The Pacific War was not decided by a single weapon or battle, but by the convergence of ideology, industry, and adaptability. Fire, fed by distant refineries and delivered by trained hands, illuminated the difference between a system built to endure scarcity and one designed to mobilize abundance. In the dark tunnels of island fortresses, that difference became undeniable. The hiss of the flamethrower was more than a weapon's sound. It was the echo of a world where freedom, for better or worse, was backed by the capacity to act decisively until the war was finished.